I always considered myself, yeah, reasonably intelligent, and I felt like I had more dimension to me than just being a triathlete. But after 20 years of doing it, it does become your identity, and I dedicated a lot of mental and physical energy to this career, and in some ways, I still really am. So I think that I thought that I would be different, though. No, no lie there. I watched some friends of mine that were older, and I was like, well, it's. I definitely saw the struggle, and yeah, I kind of maybe minimized it because it wasn't my experience. And now that I'm here, I can honestly say that, yeah, it's challenging. I mean, to reimagine yourself or revisit things that maybe you kind of let fall in the background, and yeah, to decide what it is that you want to do moving forward. Because when you're an athlete, I think one of the biggest things is that you have these goals in front of you that are so crystal clear, and yeah, you're always striving to get these, to achieve these results, to increase your performance, whatever it is. And I think the real world of jobs and everything else is probably a little bit more nebulous than that, and you don't have the same autonomy often. And yeah, I think short story, or short answer to what could be a really long one. I can see that it's going to be really challenging for me to make this transition, and I'm really just trying to enjoy this final phase of my career and not go too far in the future. Because even with this, I feel like year to year, there's so many examples of things that happened in my career and people that I met, and the way that it affected the trajectory of my career that happened within 6 months or a year, so often that it's like, what, I don't know what's going to be happening in a year. People ask me what I'm doing next, and I'm like, well, this is what I'm doing now, and I don't want to do a disservice to it. I don't want to get so far down the road with planning, as we talked about, this imaginary future, that I'm not able to live where I am now. So um, yeah, that's a long way of saying I think it's going to be a challenging process, and probably more so than I imagined. But hopefully, one that some of the skills that I've learned in the sporting life will help me navigate it.
You mentioned on the journey you let things fall in the background. What did you mean by that?
Well, I've always considered myself a bit of an artist. So yeah, I grew up with a father who was a building contractor, and I guess was a bit of a photographer, ceramicist, woodworker, even some metalworking as well, which I still occasionally do in my off season. And yeah, things like that just seem to, little hobbies and things like that. Also, I grew up in Western Colorado, in the United States. For people that are not familiar with that, it's a pretty outdoorsy state. We have mountains, we have canyons, rivers, everything. And I grew up outdoors a lot. We were camping, backpacking, fly fishing, rock climbing, skiing, all the stuff outdoors. And, as this became my singular focus for the last 15 to 20 years, I really just kind of let all those other sports fall to the, wayside. And it's a bit weird because it was such a core part of me, before I started triathlon in my university days, that, yeah, it was a pretty, I held on to it for a while, but it was a pretty abrupt end to most of that. And now that I have kids of my own, I think about the way my parents raised me and the things that we did. And it's stuff that I'm really looking forward to incorporating more, which is why we're heading out to go camping this weekend, actually.
Like high performance sport is putting the blinkers on. And I think that's the dichotomy that a lot of people that aren't high performance athletes don't realize. There's not a lot of health or balance attached to high performance sport. There's a lot of obsessive dedication and exclusion of people, hobbies, interests. Like, was it just hobbies that fell by the wayside, or is there friendships you've lost along the way, be it family or social?
Yeah, I would say I'm not nearly as connected with my extended family as maybe I was in my younger days, and then for sure friendships. I mean, that there's no question. I can't count the number of weddings that I didn't go to because I was going to a race, and yeah, I just saw some friends the other night that were in town. They actually run kind of a site that's called the Cycling House here, and they do camps, weekly camps with riders here. And yeah, I haven't seen these guys, in geez, a year or two, and yeah, we just talked about, one of them in particular was part of my early triathlon days on the University of Montana in Missoula. And we were just talking about some of the friends and people that were on our club team, and, where they are now, and how one of them did just get married a couple years ago. And I was invited to that, but it's like, I didn't go. And yeah, that's certainly a piece of it. But I've always tried to check myself because, and maybe this is just a justification, it probably is on some level. But when people talk about sacrifice when they're talking about doing a sport. And I really struggle with that concept a little bit because I feel like people are painting this picture like, woe is me on some level, even if it's a small amount, right? And I kind of look at it like, well, this is what you do to do the thing you said you wanted to do. And, if you don't want to do that thing, then there's plenty of other things to do and you can do all those things. But kind of to say after the fact, like, oh, I made all these sacrifices and it just doesn't really land well with me. I look at it more as just, this is what you do if you want to do the thing you want to do. And when you call it sacrifice, I think it kind of brings in a negative component and yeah, almost like you're trying to call attention to yourself as if you're special, but it's really just that's the decision you made.
Do you regret any of those decisions?
I typically don't live with a lot of regret, mostly because I don't think it's super healthy or productive. I mean, it can inform things moving forward, like choices that you make. But yeah, I would not say I regret it. I mean, the rewards of what I've done have been tremendous. And so I kind of look at it more that way that the things that I've been able to experience and the rewards that I've gotten from this career and this job have been, yeah, more than I could have ever imagined. And, every pathway is going to have its positives and negatives, I guess. But yeah, this has been a pretty special life and pretty special career that I wouldn't trade a lot for.